Today I'd like to talk about a tour the Melvins did in 1995, not the Nine Inch Nails tour, but another one, the White Zombie tour. And there's a couple of videos out there already about the nature of that tour. I think Buzz did one himself, exhibiting his natural loathing for the entire affair. And it was fairly loathsome, let me tell you. There's a few stories that I'd like to share about it that are not out there, that come from my unique perspective. So I'd like to share those with you. I've got a list of the dates here. As you can see, it's far more dates than anybody would want to spend with White Zombie, a band famous for having a set that is pretty much nothing but different versions of the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin. As I recall, I don't really recall anything else. Maybe some moaning or shuddering or spooky moments with flashing lights, but mainly what I remember was, oh, here's another version of the Immigrant Song. Anyway, musical observations aside, it looks like we played almost a couple of months with them. Maybe it was 6 weeks or something. I've got all of the dates here, and I took a look at them to see if things would pop out in my memory in the various places, and surprise, surprise, they actually did. So we started the tour in Phoenix on May 9th. I got this from some wiki type of thing online. May 9th, 1995. Tour ended on June 30th, 1995. And it's more kind of like a work release program with White Zombie than anything else. And really, the band members themselves were fairly innocuous and not really interactive whatsoever. Rob was a world unto himself and not really available for any kind of socializing, not that we were looking for that. The other three members of the band were nice enough, hey, how's it going? Like you might say to somebody you see at the grocery store or something like that. So I'm going to go through a couple of these dates. You'll be thankful that I'm not going through every single date. So like I said, it started in Phoenix and just kind of started winding its way towards the Midwest. And I think after about a week or two, well, no, I should talk about the sun tanning first, which was kind of a bizarre sort of episode that everybody seemed to take for normal. And maybe it is normal and I'm the abnormal one. But there was a point where we were playing in, let's see, where is this? Fitchburg, Massachusetts. I think possibly that's in Western Mass. And so maybe we'd been out for a couple of weeks at that point. We're kind of settling into the routine of what's happening, and the routine was there was kind of a vaguely militaristic attitude by the head of security for White Zombie, which was really strange. I mean, it was kind of like a cross between your dad on a bad day and a high school physical education coach or something. And this is somebody who's our age. I mean, this isn't somebody who's 60 years old going, get in your place, do this, do that. But right away there were kind of do's and don'ts issued to us. And we just thought, well, this is okay, this is a little odd, but whatever, they want to do things that way. We will probably pay no attention to them, all the while being as respectful as we possibly can. Anyway, we got to Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and it was kind of a building that looked like a convention center or something like that. And outside the building was this 15-foot square patch of grass. And it was roped off. Nobody could go on this grass. And people were just moving equipment in and out and just getting ready for the show or whatever. And I walked by it a couple of times just in the course of doing what you do, getting ready for showtime or your sound check. And so I saw Rob Zombie and his wife come out, and they seem rather scantily dressed, and they kind of disrobed a little more, and they got on this little patch of grass, this kind of 16-foot square patch of grass, and put towels down and just started sunbathing there while people are just moving stuff all around. And I think maybe there was a guy there next to them. I don't think it was the head of security, but just kind of a minder or a keeper. And I walked past this a couple of times, and it's sort of a bizarre thing to see outside of a rock concert. I mean, maybe if there's a secluded area where you can sunbathe in private, I guess, I don't know. But there they were, just splayed out and sunbathing. And also I was having a little bit of a cognitive dissonance moment, because this wasn't lining up at all with the grave robbing, zombie raising creature associating with Rob Zombie. I was going, this guy straight up is doing some tanning with his old lady. So that was kind of an interesting take and an unusual thing I'd never seen on tour before. I'd never seen the lead singer of the headliner out there sunbathing with his old lady. So anyway, that was interesting. And I'd never seen it before on tour. So they get points for being pioneers in the sunbathing outside of your venue situation. In Massachusetts also. I mean, does anybody sunbathe in Massachusetts? I know, Cape Cod, whatever. Okay, so then moving further westward, and I think on these early shows, Reverend Horton Heat was in the middle. We were opening, and the Rev was a super cool guy, amazing guitar player, amazing tone, great show, everything. Super cool, very amiable. How you doing? Much like another guy at the store, except maybe somewhat friendlier. So we worked our way westward, and every once in a while there was a day off. On these days off, Melvins would play either little in-store gigs, or we might play a local show on our way to catching up to the big tour. So I'd like to hear if any of you guys, of course, went to any of these White Zombie shows or any of the in-between shows. It'd be cool to hear some reminiscences of what you thought of the whole thing and how it worked out for you. Incidentally, this was a little less aggro than some of the Nine Inch Nails situations we wandered into. But there was still plenty of aggravation. This was the mid-90s, and people were pissed, and White Zombie fans were extra pissed because we got in the way of them and their enjoyment of the evening. So sorry about that. There was an interesting thing that emerged, an interesting kind of protocol that started to emerge maybe in the middle of the tour, where we got this message from White Zombie's management. Now this is kind of a strange thing, because we're all in the building together. Road managers, tour managers are in there, security people are in there, the bands are in there. So instead of talking to us directly, instead of White Zombie's tour manager talking to our tour manager, and then our tour manager talking to us, these messages were relayed like it was wartime or something, and there was some kind of element of secrecy involved. So this one particular thing, which sounds ridiculous, and it absolutely is, was that a message was relayed from, I would imagine, Rob or somebody in the band. I think it was probably Rob, as he was kind of the head cheese, to their tour manager, who in turn called their management, who in turn called our tour manager, who in turn told us that we were not allowed to watch White Zombie play within a 15-degree radius of the stage, because they, quote, felt like they were being scrutinized. So This is a very interesting concept because, as far as I know, neither Buzz or Dale or I ever stood there and watched the band. I mean, maybe like the first night or something, waiting to leave or something, we're like, okay, they're playing another version of the Immigrant Song. I think we're getting this. But so we got this cryptic message that, and it was very specific. It was, the band is not permitted to stand within a 15-degree radius of the proscenium of the stage. And we just kind of looked at each other and went, what? What does that even mean? I mean, does that go for the entire audience? What if somebody in the audience is indulging in scrutiny? Is there going to be some kind of security type of situation where it gets tossed out? I mean, who's out there? Is there a surveyor out there measuring the degrees of scrutiny from the stage? Of course, it was completely preposterous. And we had this excellent tour manager, a short lady who was about 5'2" or 5'3", Asian girl, really super cool person called Julia Rose. And she had plenty of experience with, I think she was a tour manager for Arrested Development on a couple of big tours. So she knew how to handle the monkeys. And so handle the monkeys she did, and it kind of went back the other way, saying, as nicely as possible, well, we're not doing that, and we don't even know what you're talking about. So, and we didn't know what they were talking about. It sounds like a really bizarre thing, and it was bizarre, and brings to mind, of course, touring with Nine Inch Nails and Kiss and Rush and Tool, and they're just basically stand wherever you want, do whatever you want. They're not concerned with being scrutinized too much. So, needless to say, we completely forgot about this. The messaging went back the other way through our tour manager to our management to their management to their tour manager to their head of security, I guess, and probably said, okay, well, the guys are going to be out there with some kind of device making sure they don't violate the 15-degree rule. But it's preposterous, of course. So I think that's a story that nobody's heard, and that popped out in my memory when I was looking at this tour list. So, okay, 15 degrees, all right. And then another cool thing that happened, which has nothing to do with White Zombie, but is just a kind of matter of course. We played Hampton, Virginia, and we played at the Hampton Coliseum. And I think Rob Zombie's supposed to be some kind of a Elvis fan. Maybe there's some Elvis adulation in there, which would be a thing that anybody would get points for. I was really excited to be playing the Hampton Coliseum because, as any true Elvis fan knows, the Elvis 72 tour played one of their most legendary shows at the Hampton Coliseum. I was in the building just soaking up the resonance of Elvis playing that show all those years ago. And I have the recording of that, and it's out there. I think it's on Follow That Dream. Possibly it's been put out on the new Elvis on Tour box set, but I highly recommend that recording, more so than a White Zombie bootleg recording from the same venue. Anyway, so that was an exciting thing to do on the tour. Exciting bit of genuine resonance. Then on June 7th, we found ourselves at the Barton Coliseum in Little Rock. And one of the cool things about, basically the only cool thing about this gig, was that the famous Connie from Little Rock came to the show. Now, for those of you who don't know, Connie from Little Rock, and I'd like to say, hey, Connie, you probably don't remember me because I was probably just one of many who passed through the stream of the Barton Coliseum where you were allegedly queen for decades and decades, as quoted in the song We're an American Band by Grand Funk Railroad. Sweet, sweet Connie was doing her act. She had the whole band, and it's a matter of fact. So Connie was there, and she was just like a nice little older lady, and we were introduced to her, and I said, "You're really the Connie?" As probably hundreds of people have said before me. And she said, "Yes, I am, and I'm pleased to meet you." So there it goes, Connie from Little Rock, a genuine piece of rock history, no pun intended. Then the tour went further westward, getting sort of more uncomfortable and less fun. And just one of those, sometimes you're going to play shows and you walk in the place and you're just thinking, this is awesome. I have to say that every single show, apart from the ones that popped out, like the Hampton Coliseum show and this next one, the El Paso Coliseum show, most of them just fell by the wayside as unmemorable, except for Suntanning and 15 Degrees of Scrutiny. So we got to play the El Paso Coliseum, and that was really fun for me because I saw so many great shows there as a teen. I saw Flash with Peter Banks play there, Sly and the Family Stone, ZZ Top 3 or 4 times, went to rodeos there. Who else did I see there? Three Dog Night. So that was really fun to play a building I went to shows in as a kid. And if any of you have done that as a grown-ass musician, you know that sort of nostalgic and great feeling that you had when you're a kid and you think, I'm going to play in here someday. And then you get to. So it was super cool. Another thing that happened that was them exercising, when I say them, I mean the White Zombie thing, whoever it was. I think it was mainly Rob and his head of security. This guy who had like a Ron Burgundy mustache for real and kind of a shag haircut. And he would always be walking around going, "Get your pass on." And we're just going, we're us. Everybody knows us. This is a working environment. We never said this to him. We were just like, okay, whatever. I'll go get it. It's in my bag. And of course, we never did that because, like being an 8-year-old, the minute some figure of authority tells you to do something, that's the last thing you're going to do. After asking us to do this over numerous days, get your pass on, get your laminate on, wear your laminates, to all of us, we're just going, oh my God, this guy. So eventually, the secret communication line was activated again, and words were sent to our management via that side, who then relayed words to our tour manager, who then relayed tours to us. Words have come down. You have to wear your laminates while in the building. This is what head of security for White Zombie has said. You have to do this. And dear Julia Rose, our tour manager, just said, I've had it with these people. I've had it up to here. And she was short, but she would just stand up to people and just give it to them hard. And she was an amazing tour manager. And this incident proves exactly how amazing she was. So she said, okay, they want laminates, they're going to get them. And she just kind of said that cryptically to us, and we went, okay, whatever. We're still not wearing them, we don't care. And so the next day, she disappeared for a while. She came back and she had made 8x10 copies of the laminates. The laminates had some kind of Star Trek alien on them and said, you know, access all areas, whatever, White Zombie on the other side. And so she had gone and made 8x10 size laminates and had them laminated at Kinko's. So we had these laminates now that were 8x10, and she handed them out to us, and she had made one for herself. And these were hilarious. And so we didn't see the guy for the rest of the day or whatever. So we put him on lanyards, and the next day, at the next show, after we'd finally received our messages of how we were supposed to comport ourselves amongst the professionals, we walked into the building with these giant size laminates hanging around our necks. Just walking around, just walking down. Where's the dressing room? You know, it's, hey, how you doing, everybody? And people were just kind of going, what? What are those? These people who are insane have already lost their minds. So we just kind of continued walking around, and we knew eventually we would get to see Sergeant Bozo walking around, and we spotted him down the hallway, and we were kind of going, yes, this is awesome. We just kind of kept walking, and he just stopped in his tracks, and he looked at us, and he just went, oh, fuck you guys, really? I mean, fuck you, you know? And then he just walked past. And it was just the most hilarious thing. I mean, we just busted up laughing, and that was just really wonderful. And we just wore them the rest of the day and maybe the next day, and then it got kind of old. And Julia wore hers also. So it was just kind of like, yeah, well, we can think outside the box if we need to and still satisfy your ridiculous protocol that you have, because you know who we are. So that was like a small, tiny, and very humorous comeuppance that we were able to deliver well within the bounds of protocol. But they still continued with their nonsense, or this head of security guy did. And as I mentioned, I mean, the band were just, I think, more or less oblivious to this kind of stuff. And we never saw Rob, and we never complained. We never said, you know, hey, these guys are being unreasonable or whatever. We just listened to the nonsense that they dished out and didn't really respond to it, except for this one time with the laminates. And I wish I still had mine. I gave it to somebody, unfortunately, but it made me laugh years afterwards, even just looking at it. I just went, yeah, that was like an excellent response. But back to the annoying things, we got to Spokane, Washington, and we played a show there, and we needed to leave pretty soon after our set just to be able to get where we needed to get to for whatever we needed to do the next day. So I remember I had my bag, and I was walking. There's a hallway that went through the back of the building from one side to the building to the other. And it was the hallway was the entire width of the building. And this is a pretty medium-sized arena. It's the, what is it? Spokane Convention Center, maybe holds 10K or something like that. But it takes a while to walk through it. So right after our set, we just kind of go, okay, we need to get out of here. I don't know where Buzzardale went, but I grabbed my bag, and I knew we were parked on the other side of the venue. I started walking down the hallway, and I saw a white zombie in the hallway. I was about halfway down it, and I was just going to walk through. I was going to say, hey, I'm out of here, you know, see you guys tomorrow, whatever. And so I kept just walking down the hallway, exit door, exit sign right in my view. And I was just about to walk by the band, and Mr. Sergeant Bozo, head of security, kind of said, hey, no, you can't go through here. And I go, but I'm just leaving. I'm walking out the door right there. See that door? The door 30 feet away. I'm walking out the door. That's it. That's all I'm doing. Well, you can't. They're about to go on. You can't be in the hall. And I said, well, I won't be in the hall. I'll be actually outside the building if you just let me walk down the hall outside. No, you can't do it. You're not walking through here. So I started laughing at him. I went, really? Okay, all right. You know, I turned around and I walked, 100 feet back down the hallway, outside, all the way back around the building to the van, and hopped in and told them about it, and they just were like, what an asshole. We were past the point of even getting mad about it or even laughing about it. It was just kind of bitter resignation about the idiocy of people. I mean, you know, like I said before, we played these huge shows and nobody ever said, oh, you can't go here and you can't go there. I mean, you knew how to be respectful and you knew what were no-go areas and you know, you never had anybody saying, no, you're not permitted in here. You know, but on the other hand, we did have people like Geddy Lee and Gene Simmons asking us if we needed anything, which we never got asked one time by White Zombie. So there you go. And the tour kind of wound down, ended up on the West Coast playing some shows in Seattle. If you have the Tora box set, I think I recorded those Seattle Arena announcements that are on there, and maybe some other stuff. There might even be some White Zombie ads or something I recorded on my DAT recorder. So that was the end of that. We went down to Santa Monica, played a couple of nights there, and it was over. I'm glad it was over. And even now when I hear the Immigrant Song, I get reminded of White Zombie. And I've never purchased a White Zombie record in my life. I'm utterly indifferent to them, as I am untold amounts of music. So it was interesting, and I'd have to say that drummer, bass player, and guitar player Jay were more or less reasonable, fairly innocuous people, not too hands-on about whether or not we were enjoying ourselves. Fairly inoffensive. Can't really have any kind of opinion about Rob other than he was probably the top dog, and you know, I think he could have left a better impression. That's about all I can say about it. So those are my personal experiences of that experience, and I'm glad to add to the incredible canon of knowledge that is the 1995 Melvins Tour with White Zombie. So if you liked it, if you went to any of these shows, I'd love to hear what you have to say. And now you can buy me a coffee through the links below, as well as check out my Patreon page, my Bandcamp page, and my very own website that has interesting things on it. So thank you for your support, for your time watching, and I've got more stories coming up. See ya.